All right, who's recording?
Hopefully you.
Hopefully not Discord.
Craig, we uninvited you. I pressed the button. We are recording.
Okay. All right. Well, I can start whenever you're ready. And by you, I mean you plural.
Y'all.
I'm
I'd be
excited
ready.
for party times.
Okay. Well then, welcome. It's Friday night. My name's Ellie, and I'm here with Beth, Crash, and Eo. Jen, sadly, will not be joining us tonight. They are very tired. Last time, the We're Not Adventurers gang woke rested and refreshed after a night in real beds, and once Rob had used his social skills, yeah, we were all surprised too, to gather information about the town, the innkeeper let slip that she had an artifact from the wild magics that she'd been willing to go that she'd be willing to let go for a little coin. She had no idea what it was, only that an adventurer had sold it to her for a few nights in a real bed, as they're wont to do. As Devon and Rob examined the artifact, Devon because it was magical, Rob because it had a thing on the top that went click. The two of them, between them, managed to activate it, and the whole group suddenly found themselves in the middle of a grassy plain, where they were soon discovered by a party of tall, blue-skinned Tuati on horseback. These nomads escorted the group back to their camp, where Devon was reunited with Angus, one of his students from Dunmarch. While Devon and Angus compared notes and pored over Devon's extraordinary expanding atlas, Caracinda asked the Tuati about their herbalism. Adelina learned that her sword was of Ugog make, and Rob was generally social. Again, surprise all around. Just as they were about to ask the Tuati if they could stay for a while and travel with them to meet the Ugogs at the foot of the nearby mountains, they were whisked unceremoniously back to the inn where they'd started, and where apparently no time had passed. Since then, it's been about a month, during which they've stayed in the inn, done odd jobs around town, wondered if any wanted posters were going to show up, and generally gotten to know the place a little better. It's now been about 6 weeks since the fires at Dunmarch. The name of the place is the Snap and Toggle in Buttonton. This is Plus Ultra. So, what have you been up to during that week?
First of all, perfect recap, no notes. Glorious.
I'm glad you liked it.
I was trying very hard to not laugh through the very serious retelling that had no jokes in it whatsoever.
It's a very serious game.
But yes.
I myself have never laughed. Ever.
It is more difficult to get you to laugh than it is to get me to laugh. I will grant you that. Which is why you have like 6 XP you have to spend. Unless you've spent any of it.
Oh, I'm biding my time.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Caracinda has been going out and foraging and performing odd jobs as, doing healing type things and generally being helpful.
Helpful.
Trying to just help people out and goes off, probably since we are nominally adventurers, she will go off and in the direction-ish of where things have been a bit weird and write up notes about what the local environment is doing and if there is anything that seems toxic, hazardous, whatever. She's being careful not to go into danger all by herself, but she's got her living off the land abilities, so she's basically exploiting this and botany.
Fair enough. Well, you find odds and ends here and there. Most of the land nearby has been fairly thoroughly explored. There are some parts, as you get farther out toward the outer ring, it gets less and less populated. Like Buttonton is really kind of where civilization stops.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned that the towns on the outer ring are more like collections of tents. But, just sort of a place to come back to for the night when you're done exploring in the wilds for the day. But still, the wilds are expanding, or rather, I should say retreating, at a rate such that there have been a number of years where people have been able to go over the land, like within a couple hours walk of Buttonton, Quite a bit of it is fields, although at this time of year they are harvested fields.
Mhm.
So it's just, you can see the remains of the corn stalks and the wheat. But, every so often a plow turns something up. Every so often something gets left behind.
Every so
And
often, a
beyond that,
mushroom-infused skeleton tries to breathe on you.
yeah, I was going to say there are mushrooms out there, and there don't seem to be any skeletons with them.
Excellent, excellent. Take some samples of the larger mushrooms if they're still around and start
Oh, yeah,
testing them for toxicity.
they are the normal size. You haven't really seen the big mushrooms since you left the fairy forest, but there are normal sized, if not particularly normal colored mushrooms. You're going to have to do some research to find out if they're like the mushrooms that you're used to.
Oh yeah. Do
You- like,
research,
you-
do testing, whatever. Yeah.
You, the player, know as well as I, the GM, that you don't eat a mushroom if you don't know what it is.
Indeed. And this means I'm not eating I don't eat mushrooms.
Look, anyone
And with the
can eat a mushroom without knowing what it is. Once.
Once.
Well, basically, what's the right word? Since all of the quote AI unquote things are being put up, there are actually, mushroom identification books that are made by learning
Hallucination.
model algorithms. Yeah, by hallucination, and they will tell you that a death cap is edible.
Okay,
And
so
safe.
there's a in Soviet Russia reverse meme that involves hallucinations and mushrooms here, and I don't quite know how to word it.
Yeah, me either. But basically, I'm never eating anything that says wild mushroom again. If it's not a domesticated mushroom, I'm not eating, which is sad because I like mushrooms. But I
In
don't
Soviet
trust.
Russia, didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's all right. No.
Yeah, folks, don't buy a book on mushrooms or other foraging or animal behavior or just in general unless you know that the author is a person.
Yeah.
Hand a captcha to the author.
In Soviet Russia, mushrooms make you hallucinate. In capitalist America, AIs hallucinate mushrooms.
I don't like this timeline. Can we go back to this fantasy realm where my character is a 40-year-old man who acts like he's 80 and wears a bathrobe all day?
Yes.
Okay,
the
he's actually over
mushrooms
40.
are not being hallucinated.
No, they're entirely imaginary to
They
begin
do
with.
make zombies.
And that. So in this same time frame, there's probably a few times at least where when Karacinda goes out to collect things, old Rob goes with her because she's hard-headed and stubborn and probably would push herself too hard and or even get lost along the way, and someone needs to keep an eye out for the party members. That's what old Rob will start the bickering with. I imagine the bickering goes for the entire length of the journey.
Oh, totally.
Yes. But for the most part, old Rob is a fixture in the inn, and he's been collecting and sharing, because you can do that, stories. Real ones, ideally, but you don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. So, legends, folk tales, whatever. I imagine because of the time frame involved, Buttonton hasn't been distinct from when our civilization was more of a microcosm, where the macrocosm and microcosm circles sort of like were just one circle on the Venn diagram. So there isn't a whole lot of variation, but I imagine there's still some variation. So he's collecting what's new.
Fair enough. Rob, I'm going to come back to you. Devin, what are you up to?
Devin is attempting to figure out how the device works. And if the device works differently if you use it from a different location. Because, we returned to where and when we had vanished from when the time ran out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll go to the same where and when if we wander around somewhere else in the here and now, and I want to figure out if we will or won't.
Gotcha. You can, if you go just outside the town, the mountains that you can see in the distance to the north are the same mountains that you saw when you were on the plane with the Tuati. And the atlas does call this, you still can't read the words, but the graphical depiction implies that at the time the atlas was written, this was unmodified planes. And I won't make you roll to, the device took you back in time, but it didn't move you in space, except to stand you upright instead of sitting at a table.
We did not fall over.
Yes.
So I can't get it to work again.
But you have not gotten it to work again. It may be out of juice. It may be a one-time use thing.
Are we going to need a
It
USB-C
is not-
to micro USB adapter for this?
That's possible. It doesn't really seem to have any way of charging it, but like it's also just possible that it won't work here again. You don't. Yeah, it doesn't work, but you don't have enough data to understand. There are too many possibilities.
All right. That makes sense.
The the innkeeper and the waitresses do make sympathetic noises because they understand that you're frustrated. They don't really know what you're doing, but over the course of the month, you become a fairly common sight.
Devin will ask them about the adventurers that brought this one back, if they remember.
Oh, solo guy went out there trying to figure out what he could find. Pretty ordinary Felton, about yay high, average height for a Felton. Brown hair, cut pretty short. Had a bunch of pouches around his waist,
Thank
just
you.
largely in green.
If I see him, I'll have to ask where he found it.
Yeah, that's probably useful. Clearly, we need to encourage EM intrusion for the device to work. Okay. Is there anything else you're doing while you're here?
Devin mostly just wants to do research, and old Rob has rolled a nat 20 on something.
I was trying to roll a nat
Yeah,
1.
Rob is doing really well at something.
Rob was trying to encourage GM intrusion.
In that case, he did really badly at
Yes.
something.
Why can't I fail at anything? Camera immediately just pans over to Karacinda side-eyeing old Rob.
Mm-hmm. There's a great deal of side-eye.
The entire town looks at the inn where the shriek came from.
It's a shriek of
wish I had
laughter.
his problem. Yeah, wish I had his problem.
Why am I so bad at being bad at things?
Devin, is there anything else
guess
you're
you're
up to
not
for this
trying
month?
Sorry.
Devin
figured-
really mostly wants to research and to discuss things the adventurers might have brought back.
The innkeeper and the waitresses, they're all female. The waitresses will happily have conversations with you about the people who go through, although they're very obviously not students of the academy.
Yeah.
There are adventurers who come through while you're staying here, and they stay in one of the rooms of the inn and are. So if you scroll over to the right on the map, you'll see the upper level, and it's the upper level of the map is it's a mezzanine sort of. It's a balcony overlooking the lower half, and there are two rooms that have two beds apiece in them, and you have occupied those essentially for the last month.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing no one else has been wanting those.
For the listeners at home, there's also there are 2 rooms with a single bed in them. There are 2 rooms with a single like queen size bed, and then
It's a giant pile of straw covered in sleeping bags.
Sleeping bags. Yeah. The 2 rooms with the double beds have, or the queen beds also have tables in them and dressers and such. Like they're intended for like couples to stay in, and probably for more than one night. The ones you're staying in have like a dresser apiece and an end table next to each bed.
Uh-huh. If worse came to worse, we could probably decamp the 2 Partfelta into one of the smaller single twins, because if you're fairly small, what you do is you basically do a sleeping bag where there's you pull you put your sleeping bag, such that you're vice versa. The one person has their head at the foot of the bed and the other is regular, and you just have separate sheets so you don't get your feet in their face.
Right.
I've done that as a kid.
You don't ever need to. There isn't a lot of traffic through here. The floor plan of the inn the upper floor plan of the inn is aspirational. In the dining and drinking area of the inn is actually fairly full on most nights.
That's because cooking is terrible. I hate
this seems to be a regular gathering place. These are not soundproofed walls by any means, but they're not insubstantial either, especially since they're not drywall. These are like wooden walls. Kool-Aiding through these might require like drilling pilot holes first.
Adelina might manage it with a high enough roll.
Yeah.
The rest of us would manage it by following Adelina.
Yep.
Also true.
Adelina would lead with the hammer.
Oh yeah.
Or a giant
adventurers who come
sheep.
Through, or a giant what?
Sheep. Wrong inn.
It's wrong inn. I heard chicken.
That's not the right number of syllables, but
it's also not much better.
Well, what if the chicken wore a disguise to look like human guys?
You'd have to pluck it.
The adventurers who come through sometimes have artifacts, sometimes don't. Sometimes they're coming through because they gave up. Sometimes they're coming through because they want to go back to town and regroup. There are a couple of traders who apparently just go north and south along this ring road and trade. Their job is to trade between the towns on the ring road and try and make a profit while they're doing it. And it seems lucrative enough. There are 3 or 4 of them who you become familiar with over the course of the month. There isn't really a school in town. Like there are some kids who learn to read, but for the most part, the kids here get trained in the trade of their parents, and we're reaching the second generation in this town, or they decide they want to become adventurers and run off, and about 50% of the time someone sees them again. Yeah, it's not as bad as it was, but it's still pretty grim once you get past the boundary of the wild magic. Sometimes the adventurers have little artifacts that they want to sell. Sometimes the traders bring little artifacts up from the other towns, but nothing quite as impressive as the device you got on the first day, or at least if it is, you can't figure out how to make it do anything impressive.
What do you mean? I can make it click. See? Click. I can do it again. Click. And again.
The device does still click. It just doesn't do anything when it does, except click.
Old Rob doesn't see the problem here.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, he does see the problem. He sees the bigger picture. But on the other hand, click.
It goes click. Okay. Devin, is there anything else that you would like to spend this month doing?
Devon will attempt to talk to the adventurers about the languages in the Rosetta book and ask if they've seen any writings in the languages shown. And basically, he's going to be very clearly someone from the academy who seems to be doing some kind of...
Ah, you have just the thing. You have a medallion that identifies you as a member of the academy.
I do. I should write that on my sheet.
Several of them. Let's find out. I do not want to do that in chat, I have decided. I look something up. Oh, good. I remember that right. All right. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, the browser locked up for a second, and I wanted to make sure nothing else happened.
Oh.
It's Star Wars: The Old Republic and Foundry don't play well together. I'm fairly certain it's because I'm on Linux, and so I have to use Steam's video drivers. But okay, so you, at the end of the month, the adventurers who come through have helped you identify. They don't know any of the words, but you have 9 places within the wild magic, and you have marked them on your map, not your atlas, but your map, where adventurers have seen words like the words in the atlas. Does that make sense?
That does
Gotcha.
make sense.
Okay. And they're rough directions. Like, very few of them have actually kept proper cartography of where they were, but they can tell you where they saw the things and about how far it was into the magic and about how far they had to walk to get back to a town and what direction they were walking in to get back to a town. A lot of them have compasses.
Devon appreciates this fact.
Why did they need to draw circles when they were adventuring?
So they draw a circle every day because that way they know how, each it's actually not a circle, it's like an arc outward from the point where they entered the wild magic, so they know about how far they've gone. Each day
Exactly.
they draw a wider arc.
And if they're not quite sure about it, they make the circles overlap a little bit. And the part in between is the areas that they covered on both days. Probably.
Well, that's only the one party, led by a guy named Ven. One of his party members, Euler, insists that they can't be sure that they have covered all the ground in the circles. EULER, look it up.
I got the joke.
That was for the listeners. Okay, so yeah, you've got 9 places in the wilds where adventurers have seen writing like the writing in the atlas. Remind me, the Rosetta, the atlas and the Rosetta thing we're talking about the same thing?
No.
I have
No,
lost track.
there's an atlas, and there's also a book that was a
Oh, right.
Rosetta
Okay.
Stone between...
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, it remains the same. There are 9 places where the adventurers have seen at least one of those languages, and they can identify which one.
Excellent. Devon is very enthusiastic about this and very thankful towards the adventurers. And
They
takes
will-
down their names if they're willing to give them, and promises that when he writes a paper on this, he'll...
Credit them.
Exactly.
You'll be known throughout the land in this rare, obscure paper. Just remember, Andy Warhol got it wrong. It won't be the whole world where everyone is famous for 15 minutes. Instead, everyone will be famous for 15 people.
That makes sense.
Okay. Adelina goes and basically learns from the blacksmith for a while. She's having fun. Rob, you were gathering information and you rolled a 20.
I'm related to this conversation, but yes. I will be
I'm
rewarded
tempted.
for my failure to fail.
What would you like to know?
We're in a situation where old Rob doesn't know what he needs to know. So he's defaulting to what he did in the previous town, just
Well, this is
wanting to know everything.
okay. This actually is the same town.
Well, no, the previous town was the one he spent 40 years in.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
collecting stories, and if there's an interesting one, he might rework it a bit to make it more palatable to him and retell it the next time. So stories grow and change, and old Rob sees the beauty in this as opposed to the disaster that any historian might see.
Well, you have, through sheer force of will,
And blind dumb luck,
indeed,
and a 5% chance.
stolen one of the comfortable chairs from upstairs on the balcony and brought it down next to the fireplace.
Stole is the wrong word. It has not left the premises, and I promise to return it when I'm done with it.
And you have scooched the tables just a little bit
They were in the way.
so that you have a place by the fireplace. And by the end of the month, that is like the locals know that's old Rob's chair, and that's where he sits. And you essentially hold court, and every night you tell a story from one of the previous groups, and in exchange, whoever's passing through tells you one of their stories. Sometimes you get 4 stories, sometimes you get 6, sometimes you get 1. But
The
you
children-
don't have
The children in this town are going to learn so much from these stories that they're going to have
They
to
are.
unlearn as soon as possible.
yes, they are.
And that's how you can cast Fireball with just a handful of flour and a candle.
You learn first, there are no wanted posters for you guys at all.
I trimmed my beard for nothing. He didn't actually trim
The
his
people
beard.
who come in from the east, I mean, you are starting to get a reputation in town, and people are starting to talk about the old guy who sits by the fire and tells stories in Buttonton, but it doesn't seem like anyone's official is looking for you. You do hear that Dunmarch and Revelton are being rebuilt, although no one who is part of the rebuilding effort or has seen the rebuilding effort will talk about it. And this is like, even to their spouses, they won't talk about it.
That's weird.
This seems perfectly normal if you're not suspicious of anything ever. I, on the other hand,
Indeed.
Mm.
You learn that the towns, quote unquote, on the outer ring are starting to grow again. Just a little bit. Someone's built a house. It's not a big deal, but like, that's a sign that there's like actually going to be a permanent residence there.
it dominates the downtown
It's just-
skyline. It's a whole story tall.
It is. Yeah, it's not just a tent city. There is a house there.
And next to Tent City is Spatula City.
That's true.
But around that is a bunch of smaller towns that they're not actually they combine to be a town. It's sort of a ring of a town. You go through the town by walking around the other towns. It's a circuit city.
I figured out where you were going with it about 2 seconds before you said it.
Ugh.
And I think I've caused physical pain to Beth.
Don't mind me. I'm just going to be throwing fish at you.
You and Devin both find out that the wild magic suddenly retreated about half a mile in the course of a single day. And nobody's quite sure why.
When did
Why
this-
to that?
When?
This is, you start hearing about it about 2 weeks into your stay, and people are saying it happened about a week ago.
Oh, not us, for a change.
I'm assuming that we're having this discussion in a quiet moment where we're not being overheard. Because there's
Yes.
going to be certain things we talk about where we don't want to be overheard. Am I the only one who's thinking that doohickey of yours that clicks might in fact
It ate wild magic to power it?
Could have. And maybe it took a
Ooh,
while
there's
for it to
thought.
fade, like a fire that's gone out, still having the ashes be too hot for a while.
Well, there's a way to find out.
There is, but it involves traveling.
We go further towards. Yep, it involves traveling. I do hate the travel part, but, well,
You leave town more often than any of us.
did I say I liked it?
You said you liked being further from me.
That's different.
So, if we think it might be powered by the wild magic, we take it to the wild magic.
That's the obvious choice.
I hate
Make sure that we.
everything about this.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be known that I think this might lead to a good story that I write down a very long time from now. After a, what are those called? A stationary of limitations? After one of those.
No.
Statutory of limitations.
That's what I said. A statue of limited edition.
I want a rock. I want a big, sturdy rock somewhere. And I'm going to ask
And you want a
Adelina.
string to
No,
wind around it.
no.
I want a prosthetic forehead to wear on my real head.
Why? So I could smack you on it?
No, to protect my head while you try to slap me with a fish.
That's a thought. No, what I'm saying is I want to see if we can change things by putting a rock someplace and then dig it up again after. But it has to be a rock that we, chiseled something into.
Land changes so much over all that time. We bury
Yeah, but if
something.
we
We're not.
bury a rock, put with a mark we made on it, and then dig it up again and see if it's there.
And how will we find where it was? The landmarks are different. The mountains are the same, but they're mountains.
It's
Up close, it's
we
way
bury
too
it
granular.
before we clicky the thing. Well, we chisel it, we carry it, and when we clicky the thing, we bury it where we clickied it.
That's not the
And then
point.
We come
didn't
right back
come
to it,
back.
and we can dig it back up.
We didn't come back in the same location. We traveled,
Well,
and we
that's
still came back in the inn.
That's right. That's why we have to. Well, that's where we clickied the thing.
I'm just saying I see a flaw in your plan.
Well,
You're expecting us to be able to find something that's worse than a needle in a haystack. We're expecting to find a rock underground. That's like finding a
No,
needle
I'm
in a pile of needles.
I'm expecting that we find the place that we went to and then dig a there.
Your step one is the problem.
My step one is just fine. You are just being a persnickety creature.
Well, guilty is charged, but I don't see what that has to do with this.
I'm pretty sure that we didn't come back to the inn because there was something special about the inn. I think we came back to the inn because that's where we left from.
And my point
So-
is, landmarks change over centuries. We're not going to
I'm
be able
assuming-
to find where you bury it.
Yes, I am.
If we're lucky,
Most
it
pleased.
would still be there. Farmers plow up things all the
That's right.
time. It
We're
might not
gonna
even
go
be
out
where
to
we
the
bury
wild.
it. It might be on in a stone row between two fields.
That it might, but it's worth a try.
Well, you find the
'Cause
chisel. I'm not going to help with that one.
I'm not going to ask you to help with it. I'll ask Adelina.
I'm wondering how many people in the town think that Caracinda and Old Rob are married. They have
Probably
nothing.
think they're siblings.
That are siblings. Twins, because they're the same
I'm betting on
age.
siblings. We are not.
Says you.
Whippersnapper.
I've never stepped a whip in my life.
For the record,
Nobody step
you
on
get
it.
about 15% your sister/brother, 15% your wife/husband, and 70% your friend. Although really it's more your friend.
Yeah, your friend is
That's close
all 1% if you don't split it into your friend, as written, your friend, air quotes, your friend, question mark.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. So, Caracinda is going to find a rock.
Mhm.
And a string to wrap around
Devin?
the rock.
Yes.
is continuing to find information from the adventurers who come through the town. Rob, there is one more thing that you get, and this is something that Devin picks up as well, but like Rob is the one who actually gets it out of them, which is that in the wild magic, like with it, a couple hours walk into the wild magic from the northernmost town, and they thought they were heading due west, but the wild magic was doing weird thing to their compass for some reason.
North is south, east is west. It's like somebody flipped the map upside down.
They discovered that all of a sudden there was, first of all, there was a road in front of them where it had previously been just rough ground, essentially. But second, the road and everything around it in an arc radiating out from that point where the road started. And this is like they have reached the edge of a circle, was made of glass. And they followed the edge around for a while, and it was so regular that, like, to the point where, like, they found some bushes that were only half there because they were at the edge of the circle, and the glass half was still there, and apparently the biological half had long since rotted away. But if this was wild magic that did this, it was like just a random wild magic storm. It was really precise. But they said the circle, from what they could tell, was probably about 10 miles in diameter.
And they spent a lot of time arguing about it because the glass had a slightly greenish tint to it.
Slightly green tint, yes.
Good thing we weren't there. The plot will move
Indeed.
forward. And now I'm thinking of the Adventure Zone's balance arc.
I have never zoned an adventure.
It starts with Lost Mind of Fandelver, but somebody has an artifact that goes wrong, and Fandelver is glassed.
Fun.
Yes. And kills a character named Barry Blue Jeans. But it's okay, he gets better.
To be clear, this is glassed as in everything within this circle was
Became
turned.
glass, including
Yeah.
people.
They didn't see any people, but that doesn't mean there aren't any in there.
Fascinating story. If it's all the same to everyone, I'm much happier hearing about it than seeing it.
It's a fair cop.
Might be interesting though.
Go chisel your rock.
Mostly, I'm not gonna chisel my rock. I'm gonna ask Catalina to chisel my rock.
At the end of the month, Rob has finished collecting stories. Devin has finished collecting artifacts and information about the adventurers start repeating areas.
Bold of you to
that they've
think
seen
I've
in the writing.
finished. But yes, please continue.
Caracinda has found her rock. Catalina is reluctantly pulled away from the blacksmith.
Just needs to put a great big X in it, or maybe like the first letters of our names or something.
Caracinda was here 300 years in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Caracinda will be here.
Something like that.
Old Rob is a dunderhead.
Catalina will figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably time to move on.
Pack up everything and the rock.
Everybody look under your beds.
Make
I
sure
got
you
a
don't
new
have
car.
left any socks there. Make sure there's no socks under there that you need to be hauling with you. Yes, she is completely staring at old Rob as she says that.
Can't lose my socks if I never take them off.
Check under your bed anyhow. They might have crawled off on their own to die.
Old Rob does check under his bed, but not for socks. Ever since the Ugogs, Old Rob systematically checks for Ugogs that might be hiding nearby.
Okay.
I'm not saying Old Rob expects to find one. Old Rob really, really hopes he doesn't. Because that would
Well, we
mean
could
that an
catch one
Ugog
and
decided
ask
to be
them.
an adventurer.
We could ask him real nice to go home, I guess, which would be terrible, but also keep him safe.
If we found one, I wouldn't feel right asking them. We'd have to take them home.
It's thought, yeah. It's a thought.
Probably give them some kind of disguise to make sure they don't stand out on the way. Maybe, well, Veltas are kind of short. Maybe have them on top of Adelina's shoulders. And then, like, take my bathrobe and put it over both of them.
Why would you do that? Such a horrible thing to two poor people who never did you any harm.
So people don't notice there's one person on top of another person's shoulders.
It's your bathrobe. That thing's a disgrace.
You just keep disgracing it, that's all. It's perfectly fine and serviceable.
No,
It's sturdier than when I bought it.
that's kind of what's disgraceful about it. Don't put it on other people.
For the record, Old Rob found it in a discard pile.
Mm-hmm.
No one else wanted it. That's how he got all of his clothing, for a matter of fact. That's why the socks
There's
don't match.
There's a possibility that you're finally leaving after a month because the innkeeper is tired of listening to you.
Need to give her a break from us, yeah.
Hey, Old Rob draws the crowds, but also
According to the innkeeper, also the flies.
Yeah.
This may or may not be true. You can stock up if you want on your way out
Yes.
of town.
Yep.
But I assume you're heading west
Heading.
toward the wild magic.
Yep.
against my better judgment, and my not so good judgment, but yes.
Okay.
And we've been playing for
Then-
about an hour.
As you walk
How about
out
we
of
take a break?
Buttonton toward the west, we've been playing for about an hour. How about we take a break?
All right.
Yes, please.
It is pressed.
Thank you. I was concerned that this 5-minute break was edging alarmingly close to half an hour.
Oops.
That's our secret, Cap.
All right.
Our 5-minute breaks are always 6 times as long.
You have walked for a while westward from Buttonton, and you have finally arrived with very little fanfare at the tent town of Roskilde. There are a large number of tents and market stalls in the center. In the center, there is a fountain that seems to be fairly well built.
Rather
But there
incongruous
are-
there.
Tents and market stalls strewn all over the place. There are paths going through them. Around the edges, there are larger structures, mostly pavilion tents, although there is, as advertised, one house. And you can see that the pavilion tents are where people sleep. And they have curtain walls that they can drop and tie down in inclement weather. But for the most part, they're open to the air. They don't seem particularly concerned about being attacked.
Well, that's something.
And you don't see a whole lot of notice that you're there, except that a couple of the stalls closest to you glance your way and then sort of surreptitiously put nicer stuff up front just in case.
Isn't that nice? They think we have money. I mean, Adelina does, but we don't have to tell them that.
Been trying to save up a little bit with the forage and whatnot.
Just to the west of you and just a little bit south is a market board on the eastern side of the central circle, and to the northwest of that there is a stage. It's rough, it's fairly hastily put together, and it looks like it's where they make announcements and stuff. But otherwise,
Whoever's
this
running
is,
for mayor stands on that part.
yeah, pretty much. Otherwise, this is a fairly standard, like, imagine spring up tent town / market, and this is what you got.
Suppose we should check and see if they've got any more them thingies.
I figured out what you meant after a second, but
Mhm.
them thingies.
Like thingies that click. Thingies that look like the keys.
Well, you can ask around.
I'm
You've
sure
got
we're
someone who
gonna-
seems to be fairly good at it.
Rob.
He's typing, but he seems to be
Go
fairly
find
good at it.
Hey, Rob, go find more of the magic thingies like we've been looking for that look like ours.
You know, I don't think I'll ask about it like that.
Well, of course not.
But we are closer to the wild magic. So it's likely a lot of adventurers travel through here. This being the first stop at all, or close to it, they might be more likely to unload things. I'll ask around for curiosities.
Right. 10 things.
Well, that's a solid 10.
Yes. Are you going to spend the 2 intellect points you don't have to spend to gather intelligence?
Sounds like a good plan. I'm glad I thought of it. I'm having one of those days where when I got to school this morning, I unpacked my laptop and set it down on my podium. Then I reached in my bag for my cable. And my hand went in so easily. And I immediately had a panic attack because my laptop was not in my bag.
Oh.
Yep.
Because you'd already taken it out of your bag. But.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah. So that's how my day has... Actually, my day started by me sleeping in an hour and a half and still getting to work on time.
Ooh,
Oh, good.
phew.
Yes. But that's how the work day started. Anyway, yes, I do spend the points I don't have to spend in order to bring that down. And also on top of that, I do have various interaction skills. I'm good at identifying things. I'm practiced at that. That might be useful in people saying, well, they brought back this thing. And I'm like, oh, I know what that is. That's an onion. No, I don't mean a literal onion. I mean it has layers. They brought back a parfait. Well, no, I wasn't going to call it a parfait. People know what onions are. Anyway, it's an ogre. And if possible, fast talking is also a thing.
Okay. I'm going to say you succeed. You know, there's a lot of... I'm going to have to start making tables of gossip.
Sorry.
But, you know, people come through here and either they're going... Oh, excuse me. Either they're going west toward the wild magic or coming east out of the wild magic, or sometimes going south toward one of the other... Like, it's pretty rare that someone's going south toward one of the other tent towns.
They're
along
doing
the
the
edge
grand
of the wild
circuit of
magic.
cities.
Yes. Most of the time, people are either going west toward it or coming east out of it.
More going west than east.
It is safe to say that more people come out than go in.
Huh.
Sorry, it's the other way around. More people go in than come out.
Okay, that makes more sense based on what you've told us before.
Yes.
Like, oh no, they're multiplying in there. The wild magic is making clones.
Yeah.
No wonder the sky think that there's too many of us here and need to get rid of us. We're overpopulating everything.
Yeah, it's not rare that a party comes out with the same number of people that went in, but it's not rare that they don't either.
Net total, they've actually come back with more. If you count the 3 of them there that seem to have all grown an extra limb.
There actually was one weird example where 4 went out and 4 went in and 5 came out because one of them had been duplicated at some point somehow. They were one of the groups that went south, and they were encouraged to leave in some direction because the 2 that had been cloned couldn't agree on which one was the original and kept arguing about it, and the town finally got fed up.
You mean we're going to have to be quiet about arguing?
Well, yeah, there aren't any walls.
A point there.
You do not see any more of the clicky devices. There are various stalls selling things that they claim are artifacts.
This is just a rock with googly eyes on it.
Between magical theory, magical practice, and hedge magic, I'm going to say you can tell that most of them aren't. There are some rocks with googly eyes or the equivalent. There's, they do the typical, oh, some adventurer sold this to me and I'm sure it doesn't do anything. But there are a couple of legitimate artifacts that are being sold for exorbitant prices. As if...
Legitimate prices.
Sorry?
The prices are exorbitant, and that's how you know they're real.
Except for that artifact, just looks like a deck of cards. What'd you say it does? Many things. I'll pass.
If you go to the west side of town, you can see the edge of the wild magic from here. It's not a hard line. It's like
the edge of fog.
the edge of fog, or if you've ever watched like a light rainstorm approaching, it has that sort of hazy edge to it.
Oh,
Karacinda and Rob, you remember seeing the mage storms when you were very young, and you can see there are mage storms out there. It's not entirely covered in mage storms. Like, it's not just like cloud. You don't walk into the wild magic and suddenly it's cloud cover 100%. But you can tell where things get weird, and you can see the clouds wandering around.
The
That
correct
there's where we don't want to be.
the correct
You've never
distance.
seen
Sorry, Ellie, you finish.
Devin, you've never seen a mage storm before, but they match the descriptions that you've heard or read. They are roiling clouds that seem to be lit from within with a green light, and they cover miles and miles at a time. They are not, as you would swear, if you got up maybe half a mile, you would be over them. They are not as far up as normal clouds.
fascinating and terrible.
The correct distance to be from a mage storm is yes. You want distance.
As far from it as possible.
Old Rob, well, you've established this canon. Old Rob remembers seeing mage storms. Old Rob
Yes.
forgot he remembered seeing mage storms. And now he remembers that he remembers seeing mage storms and is not fond of this experience.
Indeed.
I'm having second thoughts. Actually, no, that's wrong. The first thought was, this is a horrible idea. The second thought was, well, it could lead to a good story, and also the others are probably going to want to do it, so you're not going to talk them out of it, and someone sensible needs to go along. I'm having third thoughts, and third thoughts are, this is a horrible idea.
Well, we're not going to go out into it. We're just going to get close enough to it that we can make the thing go click.
That's an excellent plan, and it hinges on the mage storm not coming towards us, because those things move. You've
Well,
seen they
the
move
first
fast
time-
sometimes.
There's a chance that the first time we did it, we were at a location that it just sucked some wild magic in to power it, and that means that we could probably stay rather a bit longer, maybe, if it sucks more magic in to power it.
Or it blows up,
We're doing a favor to everybody. We're clearing out wild magic.
or it attracts a
This
storm,
Works that way.
Well, we sure hope it works that way.
or I get duplicated and there's two of me.
Oh, that'd just be
Oh, I hope it doesn't
delightful.
work that way.
Indeed. We do not need two of you.
I don't think I
One
can stand
is
me.
more than enough. Uh-huh.
Well, I promise you, if I get duplicated, I won't argue about whether or not I'm the original. The other one will be. Let him have all the problems.
If you get duplicated, then there's a fair chance you'd both be the original. I do believe.
And we'll both agree that the other one should have all the problems, and we'll both retire.
You already are retired.
Can't retire if you never had a career. Once again, causing physical pain with words.
The only reason that I am not going to try and smack you one, whippersnapper, is because it might get us run out of town, and I don't want that.
We're the same age.
You sure about that?
I keep saying it. So yes.
You keep
I
saying
feel like
Yes.
I
it.
should be apologizing to someone.
We're having a civil
Possibly
conversation at a reasonable volume that's far enough away from everyone for us to talk about activating a clicky thing.
Right.
I like
Exactly.
that you got quieter as you were saying that.
It just means that anybody's just going to think that we're arguing about stuff. Obviously, if they overhear anything. Stuff pertaining to duplicates.
And a lack
You never know,
thereof.
they might duplicate me.
One of the people you're passing by says to Devin, "Oh, we don't mind about the loud until it's after dark. Your parents are fine now.
Oh, don't
The question
worry,
is,
they're
does
not my
old Rob
parents.
notice this? Or is he too busy
I-
having a polite conversation with Karacinda?
You know what? Both of you go ahead and give me a roll.
Yes, I think I will. Oh my gosh, I hear everything.
Yes, both of you hear this.
Nat 20.
Karacinda is going to give not quite a death glare, but certainly an icy stare at the person who said parents.
According to my Nat 20, that's I get +4 to damage or a major effect. I am not trying to enforce this upon the passerby, but old Rob might be considering it. Actually, he's probably going to want to curl up inside his bathrobe and die. I should just say a reminder for listeners. Old Rob is wearing more than a bathrobe. He's got clothing on under the bathrobe. He's wearing the bathrobe like one would wear an overcoat.
Yes. Along with a hat.
Yes.
Mhm.
A wide
And
brimmed
everything
straw
has
hat.
seen, and everything has seen better days.
Well, yes, the better days were before the town burned down.
And before they got washed away in a river.
Yes, before we were towed out of the environment.
Mm-hmm. How long did we walk to get here?
Less than a day,
How
I
hard did I
think.
say this was? Yeah, less than a day. If you
Wow.
set out at dawn, you probably would have gotten here in the afternoon.
Let's sit down, have a bit to eat after we've looked around everywhere, and then we consider whether we're going to need to make camp somewhere, pay or we need to pay or anything.
I
Or
vote
whether
we not go into the wild magic at night.
Definitely not. Also, we don't need to go that far into it. We're not going to go into it. We just need to get closer than we were. See if the
Also,
click works.
if we're not sleeping in someone's tent, I don't see why we'd have to pay. Rocks are free.
I don't know what customs they might have. There might be some kind of somebody promises not to mess with your sleeping bag while you're asleep if you give them a coin.
Oh no, we don't do that here.
Oh, good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, the free tent's up there, and she points to the northeast. She points to the northeast, the pavilion tent at the northeast corner of the map. And no, we take pretty seriously people trying to shake you down to not mess with you when you sleep, because as soon as one person's allowed to do it, everybody does it.
That's what one does sometimes hear horrible stories about, but then they do come from travelers who probably have a vested interest in making the story sound better by the time it gets to where we were.
Old Rob was drinking out of his water flask and chokes a little bit.
I've known the type.
Poker face.
But no,
poker face.
you're safe sleeping here as long as you're in that free tent.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you kindly.
If we're not in that tent, we're not safe.
Well, I mean, we'd rather you not sleep in the roads, and
That's
if you're
not
not in,
safe.
if you're sleeping in one of the other tents, you're going to have to pay for it. And if you're not sleeping in a tent, then you're sleeping outside of the town, and we can't be responsible for what happens to you when you're outside of the town.
And that's fair.
And also, if we're outside of the town,
Oh, and-
it might be that's a bear.
We can't have you sleeping by the fountain because people need to get water. And we
Mm.
can't have you sleeping on the stage because if the wild magic storms start coming this way, we need to be able to get up high and shout to people.
That's all quite logical there.
How high up
We
is
can't
the
have
stage?
you sleeping in about 5 feet.
So
Taller
height
than
is-
Adelina. Shorter than Rob.
Especially with the hat on.
And you can't have us sleeping just wherever because somebody might trip over us
Somebody,
at night. That'd
somebody
be
might
rude.
trip over you or drive a cart over you.
Mm-hmm.
We can't have you sleeping in the corral because that's where the animals are.
Might be awkward. You have to be sleeping right on top of them or something. And well,
Well, no, they'd sleep on top of you is the problem.
mm,
And I dare say many of them are bigger.
mm-hmm. There's a lot of folk what are bigger than me,
Yeah, but there's some prize hogs over there, ma'am.
and I certainly do not want to have them sleeping on me. They're heavy.
If you sleep too close to a hog, they might think you're food.
Anyway, that's what
What's
the
this
free tent
right?
is for. You get a few more amenities in the paid tents, but free tents available for any who ask for it.
The free tent is available with no
appreciate it.
pretense.
Ugh.
I didn't hear all of that, and I'm not sure I want to.
Oh no, the free tent's not a pre-tent. You don't have to register. You just go.
But the ones where we do have to register are, of course, pretense.
You got to pay for them.
Right, of course. That makes perfect sense. Well, we should probably go park ourselves at the free tent and get our bearings and decide if we want to change up to the other one later.
All right.
Thank you much. Very helpful of you, ma'am. Sir, whatever.
The free tent has a pile of straw in the middle of it. It looks just as comfortable as a pile of straw does.
Better than a rock.
Some of it's been scattered out to the edges of the tent. It's not a luxury hotel, but it'll do for the night.
Are you telling me that this tent city doesn't have a 5-star rated luxury hotel with concierge service?
Oh, now we used to, but the fellow who owned it, he owned more than one. But he packed up and moved back east once he heard of Dunmarch burning. Said he saw a new opportunity when he saw it. Anyhow, that's past tense.
I adore how quickly Ellie has these wonderful in-character comebacks to my quips. Ellie, you are a gem, and you now have 7 XP.
I provide a valuable service.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, the free tent is perfectly serviceable as a sleeping place. There don't actually seem to be a whole lot of people using it tonight, or at least they haven't shown up yet.
Well, we should stake out a corner unless we're going to spend money for a better one.
There's as the light of the sun dies, you can see there's a fire over on the far side of town, and the wind is carrying the smell of some kind of meat cooking toward you.
Well, we should probably pay for a bowl of stew or something. Either that or eat our rations, but we may need our rations if we wind up.
Old Rob is
somewhere
already
else.
halfway to the stew.
Uh,
What? I made some tips when I was telling stories. Not a lot, but I'll probably buy stew at this place.
one hopes.
Anyway, smells way better than preserved trail rations. I ate all the M&Ms out of mine.
Yes, of course you did.
Oh my gosh, this wild magic table I found has 56 on the table. You roll a D100, by the way, for this. You are surrounded by hardcore rock music for the next minute.
57. You are surrounded by loud but calm, smooth jazz for the next minute.
Yes. Imagine if both of us roll separate things. You are surrounded by hardcore rock, smooth jazz. Soothing saxophone, accompanied by electric guitar.
Oof.
All right. It's the stew is cheap, comes with rice. I suppose technically there's beer on tap, but it's like someone's got a keg and they've tapped it.
And the beer is in air
and-
quotes.
No, it's beer.
Ah, highbrow establishment.
No, the Snap and Toggle had real beer too. The adventurers they were not allowed for very long to get away by the adventurers with fake beer.
The Snap and Toggle, I would expect them to have real beer. They had a permanent structure in a town that had been established long enough to have a second generation. A tent city, on the other hand, while there may be beer to be found and other spirits as well that are of high quality, I would expect there to be a higher percentage of we brewed it ourselves in this pot out back. And collected it by the light, by the shine of the moon.
There is real beer, there is real rye, There is some mead that has been made here, but the beer and rye, you will find out, is brought regularly from the east. There are traders who
Those traders that came through.
have learned to make substantial bank by bringing alcohol out to the border towns.
And they've learned to never bring Gear Grinder Special this close to the wild magic ever again.
Yes.
Not after the founding of Cratertown.
Indeed.
Built upon the site of Hilltown.
Actually, it's really unfortunate that somebody actually tried bringing it out twice. Now it'll be safe, they reasoned. It's already happened once. Lightning doesn't strike twice. And so that is actually now known as Craterton. Anyway.
And its suburb, Cratertonville.
Yes.
And the surrounding area, Cratertonville County. It's under attack by the wild magic. Surely it won't happen a third... Oh, never mind.
This one caught fire before it sank into the swamp.
Oh, dear.
The map designates it as a large green circle.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it does. You can have as lovely a night as you'd like. There's water if you want to drink that. The fountain does... Actually, everybody make me a roll, please.
Okay.
Well, I've gotten 2 nat 20s, so come on, nat 1. Give me some variety.
There's Beth's nat 20.
Cinda got a nat
A 2!
You got a 2.
I asked for a nat 20, sorry, a nat 1, and it bounced off of Beth's 20.
It's okay, here's the nat 1.
Yay! GM intrusion, GM.
So-
we all go back, we all go forward in time. Everyone is Sky.
Haracinda, you're the one who notices. Finally, as the sun is going down, everybody else is having a delightful time, sitting around the fire, maybe having a beer, definitely having some stew.
Mm-hmm.
You've gotten up to get yourself some water from the well. It's the first time you've really looked at it.
She's been a little curious about what it looks like, yeah.
Well, well, well. What
The-
does she see?
As you can see on the map, it has a double ring. And the outer ring looks perfectly like it's a little pool. It's a pool of water that
Right.
seems to be continuously refreshing.
Uh-huh.
The inner ring looks just like that pool of water in the tower. And that's where we're ending it tonight. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, everyone, for playing. Is there anything that anybody would like to plug?
This
Eo's
contraption
mom
of Devon's.
writes books. We're not plugging that. Well, I mean, we do all plug it in, but Eo's mom writes books at elizabethmccoy.com. And you can also ask your librarians to look up books by Elizabeth McCoy, and they're ebooks, so they have to look them up in Overdrive or whatever they get from. And if they're there, you can ask for the library, can they please purchase the book? And then you can read the book for free, and I get paid, and it's wonderful. And speaking of wonderful things,
And websites.
I do believe Jen blogs at bookofjen.net and podcasts at shattersoulstone.com.
That's true.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any other websites.
No other websites. Actually, those are the only 2 websites.
Yes. It's weird that they invented the internet so long ago. Weird Al Gore invented the internet back in the ancient days, only for those 2 websites.
dot.
He made those. He allowed those websites and then decided to focus on his music career. You know, I question his lyrical ability. I question his songwriting, but the man can lay down a beat. I cannot stop listening to those algorithms.
Oh, Lee.
Ouch. Ow.
I look forward to my weekends every single time because of moments like this. Thank you. It warms my cold, dead, middle school teaching and GMing heart. Also, special shout out to Drethalus's Taverns and Shebeens a module add-on for Foundry VTT, which apparently, in this map that is provided of a tent city for us, I could not drag Old Rob across the map to the fountain because I collided with more than one wall. They're tents. And yet somehow I found the wall. And yes, I understand, but it's still funny to me. Also,
this one actually is from the Reclusive Cartographer.
Oh, well, never mind. The Reclusive Cartographer is hiding behind the secret walls. Probably.
Yes.
He's in the walls!
Is he in
one we
the
can't-
vents?
Drahatless did the snap and toggle map. Reclusive Cartographer did the
tent city.
Reclusive Cartographer did the Roskilde, the tent city.
All right. And also, I take these podcasts and put them up on my website, aaronbsmith.com/cogwheel.
There's
where
a
you can-
third website.
I got a special
Well, Elizabeth
dispensation.
McCoy.com, yeah. I mean, I think there's 4 total.
Oh, you're right.
Yes, there's only 4.
No, wait, there's going to be 5 because you're going to give the Patreon next.
Well, you can get there from aaronbsmith.com/cogwheel. I put it in each show note. But yes.
Oh, okay.
But also there's a 6th because there's also Mastodon, and you can follow us on Mastodon at is.aaronbsmith.com/@cogwheel. And you can also go to patreon.com/cogwheelgaming to, support us financially, because as we've established, we are providing 1/2 of the entirety of the internet here. 3 of the 6 sites that make up the internet are apparently maintained by me. I don't know if I can handle this kind of pressure without your financial support. Don't make me do an NPR telethon. I will not. I will not. I do not have it in me. There is no fiber of my being that has attempted to do this. But you can join other illustrious patrons, which has taken me so long to get to this point because everything is written in green circles now. Including Ellie, Shen, Walter, and Patron Emeritus Cindy. And I understand that the way I worded that, it sounds like these individuals are all made of green circles. They're
Which
not.
they are. Good night, everybody.
There's nothing we haven't heard. Or is there?
Dun, dun, dun.
And here's something you haven't heard. My fellow humanoids. Humanoids. I am a fellow humanoid, as you know. If I am elected mayor of Tent City, I promise to burn it to the ground. Oh, wait, one moment. Really? Oh, well, you should have told me that. I'm sorry. My daughter has informed me. I promise to not burn Tent City to the ground. Oddly enough, we are still leading in the polls. Good night, everybody.